Have you ever been in a tight spot? Come on, be honest. Well, if you have, you know how awful it feels. Just being trapped or stuck in something you didn't anticipate can send even the most confident of us into a frenzy. Now, imagine being trapped in a situation not because of your own doing, but because of someone else's mistake. That's right. You heard me. Someone else did it, but you're the one who's stuck with the consequences. This story is about exactly that. It's about a cow that got its head stuck in a water jug, and the ridiculous lengths a village had to go through to get it out. So grab a seat and let's dive right in. In a peculiar little village nestled amidst rolling hills and fields, there lived a community of people who were entirely dependent on a single cow. Yes, you heard that right. A single cow was the sole provider of their sustenance. Now, you might be scratching your head wondering why, and we'll get to that. But for now, just picture this bizarre scenario. Their existence revolved around this one animal, and her name was Milkshake. Now, Milkshake wasn't any ordinary cow. She was a gentle giant, a placid creature with a heart of gold, and an udder full of the most nutritious, delicious milk you could ever imagine. Her milk was their life source. It was their food, their medicine, even the main ingredient in their local brew. You can probably start to see why the villagers loved her. But Milkshake had a peculiar habit. Every morning she would wander off to a nearby hilltop to graze on the lush green grass. And while she was up there, she liked to quench her thirst from a small spring. This spring was a simple clay jug that sat beside a larger pool of water. It was perfect for Milkshake, being just the right size for her to dip her long pink tongue into. However, one fateful afternoon, things took a turn for the worse. As Milkshake bent down to drink, her head got stuck inside the clay jug. Now, this wouldn't have been such a big issue if it was just her head that was stuck, but unfortunately, her tongue was also trapped inside the narrow opening. To make matters worse, the more she struggled, the deeper her head went into the jug. Soon her entire face was wedged inside the clay pot, leaving only her backside and her terrified mooing echoing down the hill. When the villagers found Milkshake in this precarious state, panic immediately ensued. They tried pulling her out, but the harder they pulled, the deeper she went into the jug. They tried coaxing her out with sweet nothings and tasty treats, but nothing worked. Milkshake was stuck fast. In their desperation, the villagers turned to their headman, a wise old man named Thomas. Thomas was known throughout the land for his intelligence and quick thinking. He was the kind of guy who could solve any problem with a calm mind and a clever plan. So when Milkshake's predicament threatened to tip the whole village into chaos, everyone looked to him for help. Thomas calmly observed the situation. After careful consideration, he announced to the stunned villagers, "We need to fill the jug with water." Of course, the villagers were confused. "But, Thomas," they exclaimed, "that will push the cow deeper into the jug. She won't be able to come out then." Thomas, however, remained unfazed. "That's precisely the plan," he replied with a mysterious smile. As the villagers filled the jug with water, the level rose until it reached the opening, effectively sealing Milkshake's fate. Now, you might be wondering what happened next. Well, here's where things took a turn for the absurd. After sealing the fate of the cow, Thomas instructed the villagers to tilt the jug slightly, causing the water to flow out and leave Milkshake's rear end exposed. Next, he told them to start milking her. At first, the villagers were hesitant. They couldn't bear the thought of milking a trapped cow, let alone one that was stuck up to its eyeballs in a water jug. But Thomas reassured them. "It's the only way," he said. "The weight of the empty space left by the milk will help her pull herself out." And so the milking began. At first, it seemed like their plan was working. As the milk drained out, Milkshake's hindquarters slowly emerged from the jug. But just as they neared the end of the milking process, disaster struck. Milkshake's back end, which had been freed from the jug, suddenly slipped and she toppled over, landing with a thud on the ground. To make matters even more comical, the jug, now empty and unbalanced, fell off the hill, rolled over and landed squarely on Milkshake's head, trapping her once again. At this point, the villagers couldn't help but burst into laughter. The absurdity of the situation was just too much to bear. Milkshake, feeling humiliated and a little helpless, tried to free herself from the jug on her own. But the more she struggled, the deeper the jug sank into the soft earth, anchoring it firmly in place. She mooed pitifully, hoping for a savior to appear. Meanwhile, the villagers, having recovered from their initial shock, started devising another plan. They knew they couldn't leave Milkshake trapped forever. Not only was she uncomfortable, but their precious milk supply was in jeopardy. But what to do? The sight of a cow trapped in a jug wasn't something they had to deal with every day. Finally, after much deliberation, one of the villagers suggested, "Why don't we dig a hole under the jug?" It was a simple idea, but an effective one. If they could dig a hole beneath the jug, they could slide it out from under Milkshake. With newfound determination, the villagers grabbed their shovels and started digging. Within minutes, they had created a small trench leading under the jug. Then, working together, they started to slide the jug out. It was a slow process, but finally, with a collective heave, they managed to pull the jug free from its muddy grave. Milkshake, feeling the weight lift from her head, let out a relieved sigh and shook her head, freeing herself from the jug. The villagers, exhausted but triumphant, watched as Milkshake lumbered away, shaking the incident off like a bad dream. From that day on, the villagers took extra precautions. They moved Milkshake's favorite jug to a safer location and made sure she was never stuck again. But every time they saw her, they couldn't help but chuckle at the memory of the great jug incident. And as for Thomas, the headman, well, he became a local hero. His quick thinking and level-headedness saved the day, and his strange milking technique became a village legend. Now, you're probably wondering why the villagers depended solely on one cow for their survival. Well, let me explain. You see, their land was cursed. It was a place where nothing grew, where crops withered and livestock perished. It was a barren wasteland. Yet somehow this one cow thrived, producing enough milk to sustain the entire village. The villagers believed the cow was a blessing, sent to them in their time of need. And so they worshipped her, providing her with the best care and living in harmony with nature. So remember, no matter how absurd your problems may seem, stay calm and think critically. And always remember, laughter is the best medicine, even when you're dealing with a cow stuck in a jug. All right, folks, that's all for today's story. Remember to stay tuned for more folktales, each one more entertaining than the last. Until next time, keep laughing and keep believing in the power of a good story. And who knows, maybe you'll find your own happy ending just like Milkshake did in her crazy adventure with the water jug.